Hello, and welcome to a video that's only going to have me in it, but for legal purposes, just to show that we are in fact in the same location, because we've single-handedly done every single video recording other than the Lions of Al Rasan video separately. So we've been in the same place, right here, but we haven't been here at the same time.
Well, we have outside of the camera.
No.
Hi, everyone.
Yep. This will be, let's do a thumbnail and then everyone will think you're going to be in it. Wait.
Oh,
Shit.
Jesus.
Can you put it under time as a mother? Perfect. Perfect. Alright, losers, you fell for it. Enjoy reading. Oh, hello, buddy. We are here for a wrap up. We're here to talk about the 12 books I read in August because I got into audiobooks again, which is dangerous. I started reading poetry again, which is dangerous. And I have a job which has a lot of spare time during it, so I'm getting a lot of reading in. But it was a mixed month. I think, I can't be bothered to look, but I think I ended up on like a 3.7 as an average rating, which for me is a dastardly low score. And it'll become abundantly clear as we go on why. But to completely juxtapose the idea of having a mixed month, we begin with a 5-star, which was Stoner by John Williams. I started this in July, but I finished it in August. It is what it is. I have included this in a video that's already out, which is my top 10 classics. If that doesn't give you an idea of what I thought about it, then you probably should look into some kind of cognitive repair. Stoner follows the life of said Stoner, who is not in fact an enjoyer of the Mary Jane. He is a man, and is essentially the following of the saddest life to ever exist. Where you follow every kind of negative experience that could happen to someone throughout their life. And yeah, it's kind of a study of this man who is born into a family that's like an agriculture family, it's a farming family, and he's sent off to College of Agriculture to get an education, decides to follow literature, becomes a professor, and yeah, you follow his having a wife, having kids, the inner politics of where he works, etc. It's told in a very straightforward, kind of blunt manner, but the level of nuance in terms of the characters and the emotion and everything is just sublime. And I'm not going to go into it too much because I do a whole thing in that video, but Stoner was 5-star. I absolutely adored the book. So John Williams off to a great start. I then reread All Systems Red. That's a funny sentence. Following the video, what series I should read next, etc. One that frequently came up in the comments was that I should restart Murderbot and Singing Hill Cycle. And as a result, last month I started both of those again, started re-listening to them, because with Spotify you get 15 hours of like audiobooks with it, and because they're like 3 hours long each, I was able to like burn through 3 of them in a month, which is dangerous, and I'm not going to do it from now on. But it was like a cold plunge where I just fell into it, and suddenly I was 3 books deep and losing my mind. All Systems Red continues to be a solid Murderbot entry. Like, I enjoy the book. I gave it 3.75 stars. I think it is good. I enjoy the humour. I enjoy the awkwardness of this Murderbot, this sec unit, who has hacked its governor module, and as a result is on this mission where it has its own volition and its own agency for the first time, and it's trying to interact with these humans, trying to deal with the decisions they're making, and also does not want to deal with them at all, and hijinks ensues, as it were. But because I also read the second book, I'm just going to review it together. Artificial Condition is fantastic. I gave that 4.5 stars. It's definitely on like the contenders for my favorite of the year. I just thoroughly loved the new situations, the freedom that we had, because Murderbot has been out of company control for a while longer, able to have a bit more freedom, a bit more self-agency, self-reflection, a lot more humour, and the opening kind of set piece of the second book, which is essentially Murderbot having a conversation with the kind of bot system on like a transit system, is so funny. And I was listening to it. I was listening to them as I was like traveling to work and everything, and I was like laughing in the middle of the street like a nutter. Because yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed Artificial Condition. So if they stay up to the level of Artificial Condition, Murderbot's goated. But that's where I'm at the moment. So I read 2 of those this month. Next up, this is also one that I read 2 books in the series in. This was Phyllis.
Sorry.
I thought you were going to turn around and be like, "Can you shut the fuck up?"
No. I wasn't expecting you to look straight at me immediately.
So I finished the Ending Fire trilogy by Saara El-Arifi, and I gave this book a 2.75 because, much like when I read The Book That Wouldn't Burn, and I gave it 4 stars, and I was like, oh, this could go really well, this could fly in terms of the next book. And then the next book was like a 3.5, and I was like, it was good. It didn't realise the potential that I thought it was going to in terms of expanding. And I would say that the Battle Drum really struggled with that as well. Because essentially the first half of this book is stagnant, reaching this kind of development. And as a result, like, the way I felt is that I felt like I was getting everything it was doing in terms of the twists, and especially the twists. But all the reveals, all this stuff, and I was like, I'm so ready to have lore dumped on me. Get me involved. We're expanding. Please involve me in this. Like, I want to learn. And instead, the characters like are kept in the dark for about 2/3 of the book, and then suddenly you're info dumped all at once. And I was like, oh, this is cool. I'm glad that this is happening. I really wish it had been organically thread through the last 250 pages. And then the book is fighting an uphill battle to get you to the kind of the ending. And so, but the ending left me in a point where I was like, oh, this could also be really interesting. I'm still invested to go into the third one. And so I was very kindly sent an e-arc for the finale, and unkindly of me, I gave it 2 stars. I really disliked reading the book, and I really hate to say that, it's horrible, but I truly disliked reading it. It stays with the theme of just contrivances upon contrivances. So much stuff is skipped over. My biggest problem with this book is that one of the central characters, I hated every single thing about their character, because not only there's a very interesting choice that could happen. Like, at the end of the second book, it goes, oh shit, and you're there like, oh, this could go fucking ape shit. And instead, you get to the third book, and it becomes very clear, very early, that this is a character without agency again, and it's a character without agency to have a thematic arc for a different character. But for that character, because they're essentially a joint lead of the series, it fucking sucked. It sucked so bad, because it becomes abundantly clear so early what's happening, and it doesn't get revealed until like the last quarter of the book. And so for the entire thing, you're frustratingly watching this character being like, oh my god, please, please. And you're suddenly meant to care about characters that you were very much against, and all of this stuff. I just found myself deeply, deeply frustrated. And then there's a very interesting choice at the end, where after this series is essentially a 3-person narrative, you're following 3 POVs, very limited, you're in them, and then for the final like third, we switch where we're experiencing the ending of this series from the perspectives of characters that are like tertiary characters. And then it was just a bizarre experience. I understand that people really like this series, and the whole series is very well reviewed. But I just I just felt like the first book, because it was a debut, I was kind of like, this has very interesting ideas, and I hope it gets better. But hence why I gave it 3.5 stars. And instead, I found myself becoming more and more frustrated with the narrative choices and the decisions made, and like that's just the way it goes. The writing style, I've said that it's like the school of Sanderson. It's very like standard prose. It's not trying to do anything in particular. It's just trying to tell the story as transparently as possible. There are some interesting kind of ideas of like the griot, the kind of oral storytellers, etc., which has like a different pattern to it, but that's very sparsely used. Instead, like we're watching very transparent prose. And as a result, if I'm not invested in the plot, I have nothing to be invested in. The characters were frustrating. The plot was kind of stagnant until it rushed, and as a result, I don't even have the writing to rely on. So that's why the series became increasingly frustrating to read, and as a result, decreased in rating as I went along. So it was a real big shame, honestly, because I had a lot of hope, and I also really wanted to try a new author this year. Next up was the Patreon pick of the month, which was Monstrilio, which was chosen by Trey. I think that was Trey's second month in a row getting to choose, so lucky them. This was a very interesting book. It's how to describe it. Essentially, the book begins. Magos and Joseph are two characters who have a child at the beginning of the book, and that child passes away, and the mother, Magos, carves part of the lung away and takes it with her, and essentially a being begins to grow out of this lung, and the book's split into four sections, which is, I believe, a very important thing to know going in, because I think both Trey and I had the experience of reading it and expecting the book to be all from Magos's perspective. And the first section is so strong that suddenly when you reach it and you're in a completely different perspective, it switches what to expect from the novel. And as a result, I think it's best to know going in that you are reading from four different perspectives throughout the book. And so the first section with Magos is extremely strong. This woman who is just dealing with absolute grief, and she has taken this piece of lung with her, and she's trying to keep it and she's trying to grow it, and people in her life are telling her to get rid of it, trying to get rid of it for her, etc. And it kind of becomes like this metaphor for the idea of like harboring grief, and how your grief can then isolate you and push others away. And I thought, just as a single section of the book, it did such a good job at hammering that kind of like theme, that arc. But the book then continues and it muddies everything. It gets increasingly muddier as you go along, which I think is interesting in ways. And it becomes kind of this commentary on crip theory, the idea of like the literary theory of connecting disability and queer experience in terms of treatment by the public. The Frankenstein is obviously a big inspiration on this book, based on just what I said. It's this idea of creating a new being, and the relationship that you then have with that, and how you impose on the child, etc. Also, Frankenstein has the child, the reading into it as well, and so it was a mixed read purely because of unrealized expectations again, but not in the way that it's not that it was my expectations going in. It's from the description on the blurb. It's pretty much all about Magos, and as a result, when you switch that perspective, it really threw me off for a second. And I do think that she's the strongest perspective at the beginning, and then it becomes kind of muddier with less compelling characters, but still ties up in a very interesting way. I think it would definitely benefit from a reread. But I would recommend this one. Like 3.75 I gave it. I thought it was good. And the cat also liked it, didn't you? Didn't you like it? So yeah, that's that one. The next audiobook I read was When the Tiger Came Down the Mountain, which is the next Singing Hills cycle book by Nevo. And I thoroughly enjoyed this one. Again, rereading it. I had read the first two Singing Hills, so the next one I read will be the newest. However, the new one for me. But I'm not reading that until October because I'm reading The City in Glass in September. It's like the arc for her new novella, which I've read. It was really good, so that's a little spoiler for next month. But When the Tiger Came Down the Mountain, just for me, I know a lot of people love the first one compared to the second one. I thoroughly love the second book compared to the first, and I think it's purely because the mysticality and the feeling of, essentially this book follows where our main character, the cleric, has gone into a forest and it is kind of surrounded by these tigers, and the tigers have the ability to speak, and they essentially start interrogating them about the idea of like of a story that they're involved in. And so the tigers, the cleric, as a way of kind of putting them off, is like, well, tell me your side of the story, and then I can then take it to the kind of the place, I forgot what the fuck it's called, missionary place, and record it in the libraries. The thing I love about it is that the tigers are so threatening. Like immediately once they're on the page, you can feel the antagonism, the sense of like pure viciousness that they could have, and the callousness that they have with human life, where they're very much like batter paw and you're gone type thing. And so the cleric is in such a place of danger that there's an urgency to the storytelling, and as they're telling the story, the tigers are reacting to it. And so you're having two stories going on. You're having the actual narrative of what the cleric's telling, but then you're leaving that narrative. And I found that in the first book, that's where I kind of dipped out because I wasn't too interested in Rabbit. Like, I was fine with it, but it's not my favourite. Whereas when you dip out here and you've got the tigers, and they're like, that is factually incorrect, fuck you type thing, you're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And there's always that sense of threatening happening. And I just think that makes it such a compelling read. So, love When the Tiger Came Down the Mountain. Recommend that one 100%. The audiobooks are also stunningly read. I love those ones. I think Murderbot's grown on me in the second book. The audiobook narrator, I think they were kind of adjusting to the role in the first one. Second one works much better. But the person who does Singing Hill Cycle is fantastic. Then we've got the big chunky one for the month. We have got Oathbringer by Brandon Sanderson, book 3 in Stormlight Archive. I reread. I gave it 4.25 stars. I'm not going to talk about it too much because there's a review that's going to be coming out for it, because I had thoughts, and when I shared those thoughts, everyone on Instagram and Discord and stuff were like, what the fuck are you talking about? Continuing my read of Virginia Woolf's bibliography, I read Night and Day by Virginia Woolf, funnily enough. That's the second book she released after The Voyage Out, and this was such a big improvement on book 1, on The Voyage Out. Night and Day was really quite funny and interesting, and was more akin to the Woolf I've previously read. It follows kind of 4 characters, these 2 central female characters, who one of them is kind of from upper middle, lower upper class family. I know that was a weird way of phrasing it. And the other one she works for a suffragette, a kind of agency, kind of office. And it's about their coming together and relationships forming with the people in their lives, especially around 2 men. This one deals a lot more with the kind of the butting of heads between characters that I thoroughly love in Virginia Woolf books. I think that she just does it so well. This kind of feeling of mutual respect and then antagonism, and also kind of a sense of a lack of respect, but also then you're respectful to them. There's an interesting like mix in Virginia Woolf books that I find where a lot of characters don't get along, but they still put up with each other, and it becomes kind of very interesting to read. And yeah, essentially this follows the life of these characters and the kind of journey that they go on in terms of there's an interesting kind of commentary on the suffragette movement, considering the time this was written, where like one of the characters is of course thoroughly working for it, and then you've kind of got the male characters in response to that. Some of them are like supportive, some of them are like, what do you need this for type thing. And you've also got the there's like interesting commentary on women who don't support the suffragette movement and who don't support the idea of a vote or like equality. And like there's a wonderful scene where this older lady's kind of like, I don't get it. I don't think we should have the vote. That's not for us. That's for them. Let them sort it out. And the main character's just kind of like, are you a fucking idiot? And then like they get cut off from another woman who's like, I'm sure we can all appreciate each other's differences. And I just it had that kind of social rage, social commentary that I prefer. Whereas Voyage Out was much more of a travelogue and was dealing with that. This was centered in London, had that feeling, dealt with figures that she would have dealt with in her life because Virginia Woolf was very much involved in that kind of thing. And yeah, it felt more lifelike. It had more vibrancy, in my opinion. The next disappointing read of the month, which Grace will not like to hear me say because she hasn't read it yet, and I read it before her even though she bought it, and then I gave it a negative review, so I've ruined it for her because I'm a monster. And that is Why Fish Don't Exist by Lulu Miller. Another book that when I posted my review, the mentions, the replies to my story being like, you may be the biggest idiot to ever exist. And whilst that may be true, I don't believe it's for this book that I am that. This is a kind of bit of auto-fiction where you're following Lulu Miller, who is essentially writing a biography about her kind of hero, who is David Starr Jordan. And he is this taxonomist. He's recorded and discovered like 1,000 species of fish. He was like the responsible for all of these discoveries. He became the dean of Stanford University. He was the one who was kind of the first dean there, etc. Massive figure, and essentially, my problem with this book is that I knew there's a key word that was said, which was it went into the idea of his kind of implications and involvement with the theory of degeneration, which is the idea that if humans can evolve, then humans can de-evolve. And as soon as that word was said, I had my fucking tail up like fuzzy and my ears were perked like I was expecting an attack. And because the historical context I won't go into because it spoils the book in a sense, because this whole book is about the journey of this author discovering who her hero was. But the way that the book is organized and told and explained, I feel cheats the historical accuracy. It cheats the research needed into this, because essentially once you discover a lot of the stuff, the first half of this book spends so long talking him up onto a pedestal. If you know what the thing is, then you're like, this is horrid. This is a deeply uncomfortable experience that is truly awful to read. And then you get to the end and you're like, okay, but now when you look back on the rest of the book, you're like, well, all of these figures, you'd introduced all of these people and mentioned them, but you hadn't mentioned the context, which means rather than the natural historical accuracy of this is the figure, this is what they were famous for, you go, this is the historical figure, let me just avoid everything because I need to get to this into the second half of the book to make you feel bad for me for discovering this. And it's like, well, that should have been your first port of call, and as a result, the book shouldn't exist. And the topic that this book deals with is horrific, one of the worst things in human history, especially in modern human history. And to have it dealt with in a very off the cuff writing style, very personable, that makes it kind of awkward, dealing with something that definitely had a lot to do with racism, and having a white author turn that story about one of the most horrific incidents that's happened to minorities and turn it into my hero turned out to be not who I thought they were, I just found to be not good. Now, of course, this is a beloved book coming out in 2020. It's award winning. It won pretty much everything's book of the year. It's got a wonderful rating on Goodreads, etc. I understand that I'm in the minority with this. Evidently, I had a completely different reading experience. Maybe it's because I had the prior knowledge of just that word. The moment degeneration turned up, I was like, oh fuck, we're done for. And as a result, the rest of my reading experience was tainted because I just don't know how you can actually sit down. It's like if, genuinely, it's like if you sat down and wrote a biography about Hitler and was like, this guy's economic policies at the beginning were kind of like based, and his art was low-key good. Like, it's that. It's like, no, that's Hitler. Like, you come to the conclusion. It's like if you had it at the end being like, oh, and then it turned out Hitler did very bad things. It's like, well, yeah, that's my opinion. I'm sticking to it. Enjoy it if you want. I really don't mind, but that's my reasoning. Okay, just like the classics one, we're having to film it like this because someone rang me and it turned off the recording. And that sucks. But I only had two more books to talk about, and I'm just going to quickly say that I reread Time as a Mother, and I also read Open Water, and I gave them both 4 stars. I thought they were really good. I would recommend reading Swimming in the Dark over Open Water because they're both second person romances that have kind of societal backdrops, etc. But I thought Swimming in the Dark was more successful. And Ocean Vuong is still cool, and I still like his poetry. And finally, say goodbye to Grace. We're going to sign off. Please like and subscribe. And here's Grace. Goodbye. Goodbye. Have a nice rest of your day.